The Democrats are just saying no to Kamala. Politico talking to nearly 24 Democrat insiders who were begging the failed Veep to sit the midterms out after she nixed a run for California governor, but kept 28 in her back pocket. One strategist saying this: I wouldn't want her in my district. And other Democrats are giving Kamala a collective sigh.
Would you encourage former Vice President Kamala Harris to run for president in 2028?
Look, I would encourage Vice President Harris to follow her heart.
Is Kamala Harris the right person to be the Democratic standard bearer in 2028?
Well, it's about the message and what they run on, right? I haven't talked to Kamala about what her plans are.
I don't personally know if I would run for president if I was her. And if she does, she has to get a real connection with the people. I think that's something that she's always been missing.
And it isn't just the rank and file firing shots. Mark Halperin says Team Biden's locked and loaded to drop dirt if Kamala starts spilling the tea about Joe's brain fog.
I will tell you, and this has never been reported barely at all, if the Biden people decide that Kamala Harris is coming after Joe Biden, wait till you hear the Palin-esque stories about how much they tried to help her be prepared to be vice president and be in a position to run, and how much they decided not happening. She's not up to this.
I cannot wait for Biden world to drop that dirty bomb on Harris.
I mean, what more is there to say? I honestly don't know how it could get any worse. Well, here's the thing, and this is coming from me. Everyone is being entirely too nice. The first Democrat that will be the one that has the guts to say, enough, she should not run. I do not want her in my district. If she wants to be helpful, she can go raise a bunch of money, because so many people gave so much money to her in those 107 days, and they lost it all. And she's out there saying, oh, the system's broken, the system's broken. Look, she ran a terrible campaign. She was an uninspiring candidate. She lost big time. I've never seen the system work so well.
I mean, the system was such a mess that Trump was reelected. That's the point, isn't it, Jessica? Tell me I'm right.
No. I think 2028 is going to be a clean slate election. I don't think that there's an appetite to repeat anything that happened through the 2024 cycle as it relates to Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. Now, that doesn't mean that people shouldn't be giving her, frankly, her flowers for what she turned around, because we have swing state senators that would have never won their races had Biden been on top of the ticket. So we have Ruben Gallego, Jackie Rosen in Nevada, Tammy Baldwin, Wisconsin, Alyssa Slotkin in Michigan, who all outperformed her, but still didn't have that level of a drag. And it would have been a historic loss had she not come in those 107 days. But I expect that we'll have a new candidate.
Do you think that Kamala would be stupid enough, and I'm answering my question already, to go at Joe? Because eventually she's going to be asked by a reporter, what did you see and how bad was it? And if she takes a shot, it could get ugly.
That's why I feel like what we're seeing right now is the simmering before the volcano erupts. And we're popping popcorn and buying tickets and watching this infighting play out. And what's horrifying about it is that we're seeing it's about reputation management, not leadership. These two were the president and the vice president of the entire country. And now we are realizing that they're sort of engaged in like a chicken contest over which preemptive cover-up sort of shows that neither was fit to lead. And here's the thing. If the Biden camp really believes that she was Palin-esque, well, then why did they shield her? Why did they elevate her? Why did they tell us that she was the future of the party? And if she believes or believed that he was mentally incompetent or unfit to lead, then why did she stay silent the entire time, including up until pretty much now? So that just proves that it's not about loyalty. It was about silence. It wasn't about service. It was about sort of transaction between the two of them. So yes, I see that this is the kind of OK corral that doesn't end well for both of them. Like both of them are going to be proverbially laying in the dirt after if they start airing their dirty laundry. You know, it's your friends that they both cheat on each other and they're threatening to sort of out the other one at the dinner table. Go ahead and both of you do it because you are both wrong. But to me, this is a horrifying example of where the Democrat Party's leadership is today.
Mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
You know, if there's any industry that you can unashamedly, completely lie about everything and reinvent yourself, it's American politics. I mean, Robert Byrd was in the KKK. Reagan was a Democrat. Ted Kennedy killed a woman. Hillary Clinton allegedly killed everybody. You can reinvent yourself and come out
allegedly.
if you are willing to ignore.
That was responsible of him.
Yeah. No, I'm not, no.
Mr. Responsibility.
Yeah, there we go. But the point is, like, I'm not going to predict 2028 because I remember the Tea Party. And the two big names from the Tea Party, I remember Michelle Bachmann and Ted Cruz. Michelle Bachmann she didn't take her career anywhere, and Ted Cruz morphed and changed enough to stick around and do well even against Trump. So what are we going to do here? What are the Democrats going to do? I think it's probably somebody in the House that we don't talk about every day, or somebody at a state level. I don't think it's any of these governors that's going to win against Ron DeSantis or J.D. Vance. But I do think they'll come with some talent, and I think it will be a clean slate. Kamala Harris specifically, I don't know that she has a political career in front of her. I think, and not because she can't, not because what she's done is so bad that it won't be allowed. I think she's hit maximum capacity of her talents, and it's not enough. And that's not an indictment on her character. It's just that she doesn't have the communication skills to make up for the baggage she'll drag with her being a part of the Biden.
She just doesn't have good genes, is what you're saying.
I think she has wonderful genes.
Her talent is here. It just can't go any higher.
I've never seen her in
very
jeans.
attractive.
I wasn't talking about that.
Yes, you were. You always
I wasn't
are.
talking about the exterior for once, Jessica.
But if she wore a Canadian tuxedo, she might actually win the next election.
Well, and I would like to make a prediction about 2028. Donald Trump will win again. I'm taking that to the bank.
Don't do that.
Up next, liberal heads about to explode after a big lefty outlet gave President Trump some big praise. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.